off the bat, I will say that I've only experienced a tiny amount of virtual reality, and I have zero experience creating virtual reality. So we're going to rely on David to be our voice of VR tonight. But hopefully my knowledge in immersive theater and my newcomer speculation about the connection between these two disciplines will be a useful perspective in this conversation. So in 2004, I was living on the property of Flatbush Reformed Church, the oldest church in Brooklyn. I was living in the parsonage, an old historic house from the 1800s where the pastor and his family used to live. Unfortunately, soon after I moved in, the current pastor of that church retired. The rest of the church didn't like our tenancy, and so they started trying to get us out. And the result was that 3 of us roommates ended up spread out among 25 beautiful rooms in this house, which included this enchanting wooden raftered attic and a terrifying dungeon of the basement. And I love this house, and I found myself starting to daydream about different scenes that might take place. I imagined someone taking you from the living room and up to one of the bedrooms, laying you on the bed, and from the foot of the bed, delivering a person-to-person song just for you. This was the first seed of the idea of Houseworld. Next, I imagined a conniving cook in the kitchen, a red light district in the basement, and a crackpot guru upstairs delivering knowledge of the house from his tub. These ideas came in early September. By early October, they were pretty fleshed out. And I said to my friend Mike, hey, we don't have a lot going on right now. Why don't we spend the next 7 weeks building this weird idea in our house, and we'll invite our friends and see what they think. And so on November 22nd, 2014, 17 of our friends came over to watch 17 of our other friends simulate a dream within Flatbush Reformed Church parsonage. They liked it, and so we said, hey, let's do more, and Houseworld was born. It went from an underground labor of love presented to our friends into a performance for the public. It became populated by a cast and crew of 70 artists. At the end of our longest run in late 2015, we had performed for about 1,200 people, divided into audiences of 30. The news of our show spread through the New York Times, through Vice, Gawker, American Theater Magazine, and through the fun and excitement of creating Houseworld, my artistic identity morphed from touring musician to creator of immersive theater. The premise of Houseworld is that one by one, guests enter a mansion and step into a dream. One important thing to note is that Houseworld was not built on a story. It was built between certain interactions that I wanted to facilitate, usually one-on-one, between particular surreal characters and the audience. I mentioned a few minutes ago that I wanted to stage a person-to-person song in the bedroom. Well, that experience became a little more elaborate. You would go into a candlelit bedroom, read a tiny handwritten sign that would instruct you to lock the door behind you, take off your shoes, lay on the bed, and say, it's time. When you do that, a dark spirit would exit from the closet. She would place silver coins on your eyes, and upon a bedside harmonium, she would play for you a funeral dirge. I liked the idea of laying in a bed, receiving a mournful song, and for a few minutes maybe contemplating one's own inevitable death. And so the first priority of Houseworld was to stage rooms like this. I imagined a character called the Wind silently billowing in the living room, and maybe you dance with her. I imagine a tiny elderly photographer slowly adjusting their equipment and in total awe of the beauty of you, their subject, adjusting your poses, offering you props, and changing the backgrounds behind you. These characters became neighbors along hallways and on different floors, and gradually, organically, a web of relationships wove them together. As a consequence of their existence, story materialized. The story is secondary in importance. I think that when we consider designing experiences in virtual reality and immersive theater, we sometimes find it intuitive to build our environment for the mood that it evokes rather than a linear sequence of events that it reveals. Even if we were staging an immersive performance in this very theater and two events happen, chances are that you wouldn't completely be able to watch each event. Like, let's say that a fight breaks out in that corner, and some of you watch that, and then you miss a conversation that's going on the stage. So perhaps this is why these immersive experiences resemble a collage more than a novel or a film. Within the world of immersive theater, it's possible that the most unique quality of Houseworld and the quality most responsible for its success was the amount of agency that we gave our audience. We were generous. But before I get into the specifics of Houseworld's agency, let's just take a look at a few different types of agency in immersive experiences. First, we have mobility, how much the audience can move around your environment. And in immersive theater and VR, we see some pieces that have limited mobility. You might call it tracked. If you've ever been to the performance Then She Fell, or if you've been to the Ghostbusters experience at Madame Tussauds, we might use those as examples of tracked mobility. On the other extreme, we have buildings where you can walk in, experience an immersive performance, and go wherever you want. We might use Sleep No More as an example of this, and some people call that style of mobility a sandbox. And Houseworld was also a sandbox in mobility. A second style of agency we'll think about is vocal agency. How much can you speak, and how much will the world respond to you? In some pieces, you're not allowed to talk at all. In others, you can speak when spoken to, and on the other end of the extreme, you can say as much as you want, and the characters will hear you and respond. And Houseworld was one of these where guests could have long, open-ended conversations with our characters. The last type of agency we'll consider is narrative agency, how much the audience can affect the major events of the performance. And as we consider these spectrums, let's know what's at stake when the audience is endowed with agency. And this is the satisfaction that the audience gets from the performance. Participation can be fulfilling, but if the audience has the power to walk through, talk through, and maybe completely shut down a scene that you've designed for them to enjoy, then we might want to limit the agency of our audience so that it's guaranteed that they'll receive that crafted moment. Guests in Houseworld had smaller amounts of narrative agency so that we could offer a satisfying finale. Even if guests try to derail it, the simple story of Houseworld remained the same, and that was, at the beginning, there's a mysterious locked door that is believed to lead to the light. A guest always finds a key to that locked door, and at the end, the audience always enters and experiences the light as the final scene. As we wrote this show, we fantasized about offering our Houseworld audience more narrative agency than we were ultimately able to give. We wanted to hide the key in different places, and that would cause different characters to be featured, and it would necessitate that those characters' dilemmas be solved. We imagine certain characters becoming villains or being redeemed depending on the actions of the audience. In 2015, we ended up not having the time or resources to pull off the majority of these narrative agency ideas, but this greater flexibility of narrative remains a goal of mine for Houseworld's 2018 remounting. Let's touch on a few more potential hazards of audience agency. We've talked about disrupting crafted moments. Let's also think about the behavior of your participants, because it's going to range on a spectrum of introversion and extroversion. Some attendees are intimidated by a show where they're going to be asked a question or be asked to tell a story about themselves. In other situations, introverts might be drowned out by a louder, more aggressive, extroverted attendee that they're near. There are a number of ways that immersive performances have tried to address this. Some try to mark guests with their elected level of participation so that they can be delivered the appropriate passive or active experience. And others do their best to ensure that the show has built-in features that allow it to be enjoyed by both the introvert and the extrovert. Perhaps the biggest problem that Houseworld ran into as a result of the high agency we gave was uneven guest experience. And I'll give an example of that. Let's say that 10 minutes into the show, guest X experiences a scene and an actor delivers a great improvised joke. And so they like that. And then guest Y comes along, and 13 minutes into the show, they see the same actor, and that actor tries to improvise a joke, it falls flat, and that guest has a bad experience. And so if we continue to imagine guest X just really lucking out and just getting scene after scene of incredible improvised drama and comedy, then, and we imagine guest Y having really bad luck and just the worst moment of every actor that night is seen by guest Y, then we can imagine guest X leaving the performance elated and guest Y leaving with a cringe on their face. And that is just, these are the hazards of improvised art. I will say that the asset that maximizes our chance of delivering as many satisfying Houseworld experiences as possible is a cast of happy improvisers, secure in their fictional identity, who are encouraged to let aspects of their authentic selves and their talents shine through their fictional character. If we give these happy, secure improvisers enough lines and enough participatory activities with which to engage their guests, those performers become the strong, dynamic centerpieces of the show. Now, I'm not sure if artificial intelligence could inhabit a virtual Houseworld in the same way, but maybe actors controlling virtual characters could. And so, drawing this discussion of agency to a close, one thing that was apparent presenting Houseworld is that audiences are craving greater agency in immersive experiences. They may even be willing to put up with the occasional chaos in Houseworld in order to enjoy the greater self-expression that Houseworld offers. I'd like to share with you two more strengths of Houseworld that might be helpful for your own projects. To describe one of these qualities, I'd like to use the term House of Pretend. Houseworld provides New York City with a building where you can walk in and there are 4 floors of adults playing pretend. They're all fictional characters doing weird things. They won't break character, and you can interact with them as yourself or as your own fictional creation. You can go on missions with them, and you can at times maybe mistreat them. My observation is that adults still want to very actively play pretend. When we were kids, we used to go into the basement and maybe say, like, okay, I'm a swamp monster, and you're all tigers, and if I touch you, you turn into zombie tigers, and you have to do my bidding, right? And then at a certain point, maybe that becomes unacceptable and it's a childish thing we have to discard. If we want to play as adults, we can maybe play basketball or we can go dance at a bar, but this sort of imaginative playing pretend isn't quite as available. Maybe through VR and immersive theater, venues for this type of play will become more widespread. I like thinking about the potency of VR to add an extra layer of identity concealment so that introverts who might be too self-conscious to play in Houseworld might feel comfortable playing in virtual reality. A final strength that I will share with you is the therapeutic nature of Houseworld and therapy within immersive theater. When audiences are in these fictional worlds, speaking with actors who they might not ever see again, it can be a beautiful opportunity to explore some of the bigger questions. Houseworld is a place where people can talk about things like the death of a loved one, or the pain of heartbreak, memories from childhood, or the question of, am I really happy? Audience members have cried at the majority of the Houseworld performances. And from what I've been told from the performers, this is never the tears of being traumatized by the performance, but this is tears of maybe a lifting of some emotional burden or emotional resonance. There's a reason why Catholics have been going to a confessional booth for hundreds of years. And many people aren't religious these days, but maybe we still have that confessional urge. Some people go to a psychiatrist, but maybe for some, the preferred way to process difficult thoughts and emotions is through art and through play. When I imagine the possibility of going into a VR experience and it's built for you to discuss dark feelings and process pain, I see big potential for comfort and human growth. The immersive project that I spent the most time on since Houseworld went into hibernation is Whisperlodge. During the run of Houseworld, multiple people asked me, what about this room? Was this intentionally an ASMR room? I'd never heard of ASMR, but when I Googled it, I became aware of an immense YouTube subculture. I'm fascinated by the fact that there are countless videos, many of them an hour in length, where you can watch and listen to paper or plastic crinkle or experience the simulation of a haircut. ASMR enthusiasts, and that's short for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, seek out certain audio and visual stimuli in order to experience a pleasant tingling sensation in the skin, and scalp, and down the spine. I was introduced by a friend to Whisperlodge co-creator Melinda Lau, someone who knows a lot more about ASMR than I. And for the last year, we've been creating a live experience of ASMR, an immersive staging of the YouTube subculture. Guests enter a house and experience their attention in a different way, focusing on small details and long durations that might otherwise be overlooked. Whisperlodge zooms in on a particular aspect of immersive experience, and that's the sensory experience. There's less story, less socializing, there's no puzzles. Through sound, images, touch, and intimacy, an emotional engagement also occurs. The special thing about Whisperlodge, to me, is the moment when you leave at the end, and the sound of the wind, and the sight of these rustling leaves on the branches are amplified. The small feels bigger. And this points to what I consider to be one of the most noble aspirations of immersive theater and virtual reality. And that's that the audience can go through a fictional or virtual experience, come out the other side, and have a deeper appreciation for reality, and maybe be able to engage with reality in a more meaningful way. Having examined ASMR's 2D scenes in YouTube for the last year, and having adapted these sequences to a live immersive format, I have a feeling that the ASMR community will eventually be thriving in virtual reality. VR might solve some of the challenges that Whisperlodge has encountered. For one, virtual reality will be able to offer a much larger selection than we can in our 8 physical rooms of Whisperlodge. Maybe we'll eventually have virtual ASMR to the degree that we have ASMR videos on YouTube. Second, ASMR requires things that virtual reality is already capable of delivering, and that's audio and visual stimuli. Third, VR offers an interesting compromise between 2D YouTube ASMR and Whisperlodge's immersive ASMR experiences. In 2D YouTube, you get the intimacy, but you don't have to make yourself vulnerable because you're not really with that person. You're safe in bed behind the screen. In Whisperlodge, you experience intimacy and you are vulnerable because you're in that room with the ASMR artist, being touched and hearing and seeing them, and maybe that's part of the magic. VR might split the difference so that it seems like you're more there, but then again, you're not really there. ASMR YouTube subculture came about because it's easy for anyone to shoot and publish videos. When it becomes this easy to create, publish, and view virtual reality experiences, the floodgates will open for ASMR in VR. As a final thought, I want to touch on virtual reality as uniquely equipped to allow the impossible. You can't fly through Houseworld, and the fireplaces in Houseworld can't turn into mouths that try to talk to you or try to swallow you up. Virtual reality can simulate the fantastical, the supernatural, and if I was going to create a virtual Houseworld, I would be utilizing those affordances. In 2017, Immersive Theater's strength is that it allows for intimate, nuanced human experience. I mentioned earlier that scene where you have the silver coins on your eyes and you're laying in bed receiving a funeral dirge. In virtual reality, I'm not sure that that scene would be all that exciting, but in Houseworld, where you're in that room and it's really happening from a person next to you, it can be quite powerful. So I'm going to continue pursuing those moments as we move Houseworld to a permanent venue in 2018 and move towards presenting it year-round. I hope to see you in that dream, and I also hope to come and visit yours. Thank you.